And we will be streaming shortly. We are streaming.
We are streaming.
Let them in.
Here comes everyone. All regulars and a few newbies. Welcome everyone to TRS-80 Trash Talk number 38. My name's Ian Maverick, coming to you from sunny Melbourne, Australia. And we've got up to 2 hours of talk about Tandy TRS-80s, not any specific model, but all of them. We like to hear what people are up to, what their plans are, how they're going about coming to shows, and lots of different stuff. So I don't have many rules here, only that you put your telephones on silent and leave the swearing and bad language to me. Today, for a change, what we're going to do at some point, probably about halfway through it, is have a retroactive look at an old magazine. This one was 80 micro, August 1982, which is a games issue, and there you'll find a link for it, I believe. Peter, you're going to put it in the chat now, aren't you, for people who want to download it and read it, who haven't downloaded the PDF already?
Yeah.
So without further ado, we'll get this thing started. So I'm just going to start by going around the room, and you'll go to people who have this time here. So I'm going to talk to Marcel. Hey, Marcel, how you going, buddy? Welcome. Hey. People who are unfamiliar with the name, he's the reverse engineer extraordinaire of the Model 1 circuit board and its keyboard. So we are very pleased to have you in our presence. We've needed someone to do this with the Model 1 for a long time, and we love your work. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and what you'll be working on? You have the floor.
Sure. Yeah. Just one call out. Jay is the one for the Model 3 and 4. So I'm focusing on Model 1 right now. So yeah, I've been spending some time looking at the Model 1. I wanted to just learn a little bit more about how it works, and so I tried to reverse engineer it. And then while I was there already, I thought it would be useful to have like a PCB version of that. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. Currently, I'm working on a couple of adapters for the character generator and the ROMs. With that, I should be able to pretty much reproduce everything. I also did I'm working on an MX keyboard, so that is a replacement for the Model 1 keyboard. For the Alps, I have the PCB there, so pretty much everything is done. Also, the shield, the metal shield, should be arriving next week, so I would be able to open source that too. So if you want to get a replacement shield, if it rusts or something. But pretty much everything I am now able to replace except the case itself. But and obviously the Alps keys. But for that,
so when you say the metal shield, you mean the carrier that holds the key switches, is that
correct.
right?
Oh yeah. The actual shields that keeps the keyboard at a specific distance to the PCB board.
Yeah, because the Model 1's famous for not having any RFI shield. You'd actually be improving the machine if you went and designed an RFI shield for it, but none of us really want that. As far as the adapter for the character generator, if you haven't already done it, I've already got them, so it doesn't even need to be designed. You just need to drop the character set you want onto a 2716 EEPROM and plug it in. So
yes.
That's an easy one. So yeah, no, that's great. So you've got any got any interesting stories or anecdotes about when you were designing that thing, how it frustrated you or anything like that?
I think just the technical documentation. I was surprised how many actually errors there were in it.
It's Radio Shack. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, I think it's fine. I mean, I was surprised by how the Model 1 uses the keyboard as kind of a memory area to decode what character was pressed or what key was pressed. So that was interesting. Usually, all other computers use more like a decoder for this, but here the CPU does it. So that was actually interesting how it does it.
It's interesting that you say that because prior to keyboard decoders being common, computers like the Apple II, I think, as well, and possibly the Commodore PET. If the keyboard wasn't plugged in, it can't proceed. The bus is just going crazy, and it doesn't do anything. So after they started designing computers with a proper keyboard encoder, then they would run without the keyboard connected. But yeah, I think most machines of that late 70s era, if there's a problem with the keyboard or the keyboard's not connected, it doesn't seem to do anything. It just seems to go crazy on the bus. So yeah. So how many are out there at the moment of your boards that you know of? Because it's very interesting, and I know that Jay's been doing a production run of them. So must be getting into the teens now.
Yeah, I sent out at least 20. So at least 20 PCBs, a couple of kits, but mostly PCBs, but around 20 PCBs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
They're not oh, sorry, Peter, what were you going to say?
I've got one.
Yeah, yeah. They're a fantastic looking project, not for the faint-hearted. They're not the sort of thing you could sort of do on a Saturday afternoon. I suppose some people could if they were if they had everything there ready to go. But yeah, it's probably a couple of weeks work in spare time, not to rush it and get everything right with it. But we should see them coming online in the next few months, and hopefully we'll see a few of them at Tandy Assembly at the end of the year. So have you had a thought about coming to Tandy Assembly, Marcel?
I will be joining the VCF Southwest, but I have not yet thought about the 10-year assembly there. I mean, there's a meeting there too, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Cool. What's your next project going to be? Everyone's hanging out for the expansion interface, not wanting to sort of twist your arm or anything.
yeah, no.
Like that.
There's actually I have the expansion interface I put on hold right now because I wanted to do first now the Japanese version of the Model 1.
Very good.
And I think the expansion interface after that. I also still want to do a more modern version of this with modern connections for the Model 1, but I think the Japanese version seemed to have some improvements there, which I want to first figure out before implement one version, and then I have to do improvements afterwards. So I will be focusing first on the Japanese one. Seems to be more stable.
It's an improvement. It's had a few changes here and there, a slightly reduced chip count. Reliability, I think, was better, but that may have a lot to do just with the fact that it was a Japanese company putting it together instead of TCA, but who knows? So yeah, before I move on, has anyone else here got a question for Marcel?
Yeah, Marcel, just one quick question. I sent you an email. What's the thermal paste you suggest for the ICs?
Yeah, I mean, any thermal paste works. I use one in a syringe kind of
Okay.
style, easy to actually apply.
All right.
But any paste works. There are also these kind of stickers, but they are not transferring the heat that well. So I would suggest a paste. Any kind of paste for thermal transfer is probably good enough.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate what you're sending me with the next board. I appreciate that very much.
You know, Marcel, you made a comment about the documentation and the specifications having errors in them. I find that across Tandy documentation. Sometimes I wonder if that was intentional, to prevent
Oh.
solid like reverse engineering of their systems, because I see it consistently, but maybe it's just human error. I don't know.
I can say some of the third-party Cocoa ones had that too, intentional mistakes.
Yeah.
Google Tupolev Tu-144. That for people who know their
So-
plane, that was a Concorde built by espionage. They fed them the wrong information and the thing crashed. So
Exactly. Because you can look like you're being open to the world. Yes, we're sharing, we're supporting everyone that they can work in their own systems, but at the same time, if you try to reverse engineer it, you're going to have a lot of problems. So I'm pretty.
But they also had lots of production changes that during production that are very quick to, you can come unstuck if you go to repair something from Tandy that has a different part to what is in on the schematic, and then if you replace that part with what it says on the schematic as opposed to what is already in there, you can quickly find yourself with a machine that doesn't run. So you've got to be sort of very diligent when you're repairing these things. But anyway, I'm waffling on. Thanks for joining us, Marcel. It's always good that you could take some time to come and talk to us here. So we do this every month. So hopefully we'll see you next month.
Yeah,
So
I missed last time. Last time I wanted to join and I just missed it.
it's always good to have you here. All right, who should we pick next, Peter? Jay Critty. Hey, buddy.
Hello, everyone. So let's see the updates here. You probably saw I'm working on my kind of faux, external disk enclosure right now, battling some drive and controller type issues, but that's coming along. And I also, I think I mentioned, I made some little PCB pass-through boards. If anyone wants to create their own kind of fake external enclosure, it's just a one-to-one pass-through board, but happy to send those out to anyone who wants one, or the Gerber files can also be available too. And VCF Southwest is coming right along. We've been selling a lot of tables. We're still looking forward to a lot of the Tandy folks signing up for the TA side of the event. And I'm really wanting to, try to solidify the plans as far as special attractions and whatnot that we have in store. But yeah, everything's coming along swimmingly, and we're looking forward to seeing a lot of your faces at the Tandy Assembly meetup at VCF Southwest.
I'm so tempted to go to that thing. I just have so much travel on this year that I just want to be there because I missed the last one with all the Tandy, former engineers there talking. If some of my friends had told me that there were going to be so many engineers there, I probably would have made time to go there. But that's the past. But I do want to be part of it going forward. So I'm hoping to make it this year, if not definitely next year. So
I'm trying to
so
figure out a way to get there too this year. It's going to be tough, though. I have to miss so many days of work. But man, I wish I could go.
Yeah,
you're
we're hoping to have a
self-employed
lot
like
of the
me.
same engineers back. We're going to try to get all the same bunch there. We do have one special project coming from Jerry. He's got a special project in store that he's going to unveil at the show that I think, at least for those of you from the Dallas-Fort Worth area or who are familiar with the Tandy and Radio Shack headquarters, you'll be very delighted to see a special project that he's going to unveil at the show. But yeah, we are planning to have more interviews, more content. Want to get the old Tandy engineers involved as much as possible. And I mean, one of my goals is to actually have them involved in the design process for designing a new accessory. So, kind of a partnership of them working with some newer, younger engineers and try to create something there live at the show and give these guys one last hurrah kind of thing. So, but like I said, planning's coming along swimmingly, and no big things to report at this point, but news continues to trickle out, and we'll be sure to let everyone know on the Discord and whatnot. So
Yeah. Are all the speaking positions taken so
Oh,
far? Or that you still got a few to fill?
Yeah, we still have plenty of openings. I would say we're probably about 25% booked on the presentations, and we haven't even booked any yet of the Tandy specific ones. So that's going to be a push in the next few weeks to kind of get some of those nailed down.
Yeah, that's what was sort of in the back of my mind was if I was thinking how could I contribute because Eric Dittman and I do a talk each year at Tandy Assembly, and I thought we could easily recycle one of those and represent it to a different crowd. Our talks are both informative and irreverent, so we quite enjoy doing them. So that's something we could always look at a possibility for the future, Eric.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll have to book your talk, and then you'll be, voluntold to appear. So.
I also run I also run a killer trivia game. That's something
that
Yeah.
would be good.
yeah.
Love that.
All right. All right, Jay. Thanks for joining us. For people who don't, who haven't sort of put the name to the face yet, so Jay is one of the organisers of the VCF Southwest. So that's he's we're very happy that you were able to give us your time tonight to come and talk to us.
Oh yeah, one last thing, if I could interject, the production run for the Model 3 and Model 4 keyboards will be commencing very shortly. It's going to take about 18 weeks of production time. I'm having them made professionally in Taiwan. I will have fully assembled units and DIY kind of, a la carte parts available as well. But just want to let everyone know, if you've been, sitting on the fence waiting for a Model 3, Model 4 keyboard, not the clustered arrow version, just the standard versions. But if you've been waiting for one of those keyboards, an off-the-shelf, ready-to-go solution will be ready very shortly.
Great.
One
Can't
thing
wait to see him.
One thing I also wanted to mention that if you're going to want to book a table for VCF Southwest in the Tandy area, make sure you specify that when you buy your table.
Right. We'll kind of pick up on it there's a section on the form when you book a table where you can tell us about your display. So if you mention anything Tandy, we'll be sure to kind of put you together with the other folks. But good point, Eric.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. Hope we can catch up with you in a month's time. And
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm keen to order myself some keyboards as well. So I'll just sit here and repeatedly press the enter key on my Model 4 because it's not very responsive. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are waiting to buy those.
Yeah,
they're coming. I'm ready too. I mean, I just built 3 for a guy up in New York, and man, it takes an hour per unit to build those. So I'm ready as much as y'all are to get these professionally made where I don't have to assemble them for everyone.
And I can tell it's going to be nice to type on. I use what's called a DAS keyboard, which uses the MX switches. I've been using them for a decade, and I write all my stuff on it. They are magic to type on. So, yeah, can't wait.
Sounds good.
All right, moving right along. New people, Tony Capellini. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. The floor is yours.
Don't think I really have much to say. I'm more of a lurker. I do listen to the podcast regularly. I do miss it. I am aware of the Trash Talk live sessions, but this I think is the first time, maybe first or second time I've made it. I am a Coco user. As far as Tandy computers go, I was back in the day.
Welcome. We need more Coco people here, so I'm glad you could join us.
Thanks. I don't really have anything set up, lack of space and lack of time, but I'm hoping as I ease into into retirement to get more time for that and space. Don't know what the typical forum is here. What else you want me to talk about?
Well, you could quick questions off the top of my head would be, are are you interested in going to Cocoa Fest or Tandy Assembly or both? And what did you use to what Cocoa system comprise of back in the day, and what did you use it for?
Yes, I am interested in both. I do put them both on my calendar. I live in California, so it's a bit of a haul. Of course, it's a lot closer than your haul. I doubt that I would be able to go though. It's just timing is usually off. So back in the day, I started with a Coco 1 64K, 16K, then upgraded to a Coco 3, had a multi-pack with a disto interface and two 80 megabyte hard drives. I was working for a company that made hard drives at that time, which was Micropolis, and we could get drives at a significant discount. So I ended up with two of them booting, OS 9. I can't say that I had any particular use for it. I learned how to program in BASIC. Tried to get into assembly a little bit, but that's a bit of a jump. Although I did a little bit of programming at work in those days, but unfortunately, let's see, in the mid 90s, I decided to sell all my gear to can't think of the name of the company. Anyway, they used to advertise in Rainbow in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and put everything in a big box, shipped it to them, and I've regretted it ever since.
Yeah, sure.
Well, but I will say this, the Coco was primarily the reason I got into programming, which is what I do now. I'm a software engineer. I work for a company that makes hard drives, and I write tests and tools for the firmware engineers so they can bring up on the hard drives. And of course, we don't use BASIC anymore. Primarily use Python. But as I was just telling Curtis, so when I moved from Pennsylvania to California, looking for a job, I joined a group in Southern California back in probably the mid 80s, Color America, and that group was I don't really remember how big it was, but it was a good sized group, anywhere from 50 to 100 people. And one of the more prominent members of that group was Steve Bjork, who was a famous author in the Coco community and wrote a lot of software for Radio Shack and I think a few other companies, Datasoft and whatnot. Anyway, sadly, he recently passed away, and a lot of his software and his estate went on sale, and it looks like people are basically just trying to make money off of that instead of helping out the communities who could use it, the Coco community. So a lot of his source code and floppies were listed in different auctions, and anyway, I don't know if any of that stuff will actually make it into Coco community, for people to learn from, because Steve was, a pretty well-known author and had a lot of experience. And I'm sure, there's probably a handful of people who could really understand the stuff he did, his source code. So
I did pick up something from that.
The hands of people who can do something with it and distribute it, comment on it.
Yeah. I did pick up something from that guy, but it wasn't source code. It was this mine rescue game, which came with two floppies instead of one. But this was Steve Bjork. The guy still have a whole ton of stuff, but yeah, I wasn't gonna. He wants a lot of money for it, and
Come on.
I just got one small thing.
The hands of people who can do something with it. No account.
Hey, I have a couple follow-ups to Tony. Hey, Tony, actually, it's nice to talk to you finally. I know we chatted online quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. Hi.
So I don't know if you know, but Arno Puder is now running a Tandy Assembly meetup out west. So maybe that's something you can jump on next year. I'm sure he's going to have it again next year.
Yeah, I found out after the fact that they had it. I did contact him when you gave me his name because I have a neighbor who has a Model 2 in the garage, uh, thinking that Arno wanted to buy it or would acquire it rather. I don't know if he's going to sell it or give it away. Arno says he's not a collector and he never really, I guess he never looked into it. So if any of you are in drivable distance or transporter beam distance of Silicon Valley, contact me if you're maybe interested in a Model 2. I don't know what condition it's in. It's in a garage. I think it belonged to my neighbor's father. He might, I'm sure he might want to part with it, but whether he wants to sell it, I mean, I doubt that it's working. But anyway, a Model 2 is a Model 2. Even if it's not working, it's worth something probably for parts, CRT, whatnot.
Yeah. In regards to the podcast, the podcast, it's not dead. We just need to get back into it. I really want to start doing it again. It's a lot of work to do, but
Yeah.
this is just easier. But I do want to do the more rigorous type of work we did in the podcast. So I'll get back to it one of these days.
I'm all for doing more podcasts.
Good.
Question I had before about Micropolis back in the day, Tony, is so you got they give you hard drives at I guess a staff rate, but what often I hear from Tandy engineers is they would go dumps the people that worked at Tandy in at the head office would go dumpster diving into their own bins and pull out broken equipment, take it home and mess around with it and fix it and things like that. So did a similar sort of thing happen at Micropolis, or they were a little bit better at building hard drives? You didn't have any thrown out.
It's interesting. I've been in electronics all of my adult career. I mean, for a job that is, and I can't say that I ever even considered that looking in dumpsters, or if other people did. I'm sure it would now, being this many years in the past that, I'm sure people did it. So I can't recall of anybody finding, stuff, gold mines, so to speak, And back in those days, we're not so recycling conscious as we are now.
There's some legendary stories about people like the late, what's the gentleman's name, Peter? It's on the tip of my mind. Frank Durder the fourth, who habitually would take home stuff that had been slated for the trash, and it was discovered a few years ago. And Peter was part of the group that recovered all that stuff. But amazing amount of stuff that was otherwise slated for landfill or other recycle or anything. So I just
you know what I didn't rescue from a dumpster, but someone who gave me what he rescued from a dumpster. He rescued 5 Model 2s that he found in a dumpster, and 4 of them had ArcNet boards installed in them. He found them in a dumpster, and it would have been
a network in a dumpster. Amazing.
That must be the Oscar used.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tony. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time around. All right, next newbie, Gary Shug. Hey, buddy, how you doing? First time caller, long time listener. I believe that's what they say.
Oh, first time ever. I've been looking for a TRS-80 Model 1 group. They didn't look in the right places, I guess.
Well,
that was my first home.
Hopefully you can make it to Tandy Assembly. There's lots of Model 1s there.
Yeah, probably not, but where is it? Is that Ohio?
That's the one in Ohio, yeah.
That's the one in Ohio, yeah. Probably not, but we'll see.
Tell us a little about yourself.
All I ever bought from Radio Shack was a 4K level 1 basic and level 2 basic as a spare part, which I think was like $35. I didn't actually buy anything until I saw a story in some computer magazine. You could buy level 2 basic as a spare part. I went and I bought that first to make sure I could do it. And then I went and bought the Model 1 keyboard, the Model 1 keyboard with level 1 basic. Immediately upgraded 16K RAM in lowercase. And later on did 3-speed mod and tricolor LED and eventually put 64K RAM into the keyboard. I could bank swap it out for the ROM, and I used that for a printer buffer. Remember dot matrix printing, 15 characters a second?
Yeah, I remember those.
I could print off, and then go do my other stuff because it was in the buffer. Then I bought a S100 adapter, and I bought S100 boards for disk controller and printer, and modified them to look like Radio Shack, so I could use Radio Shack Christos. I had already bought a PMI modem because I got a pre-order, I was at a regular computer meeting and they were taking pre-orders for it, so I got it at a big discount. Anybody remember the PMI modem? It was an S100 modem that would do 600 baud using the 300 baud signal. So computer to computer, you could do 600 baud with it. Back in the days before there were 1200 baud. Before there were 1200 baud modems, or when they were like $1,000 a piece.
This would have been a great conversation about 600 baud modems if our friend Paul Schreiber was here. He used to design them for Radio Shack. He did all their early modems, and he got in trouble once for designing a 600 baud one. So it would have been good if he was here. He could tell us about it. But yeah, he's legendary for modems. So. But yeah, it sounds like an awesome system you had there. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll let you continue.
That's fine. And before I put 64K into the keyboard, I did have memory, S100 memory on the S100 bus. At one point, I bought that color thing. Was that called Dazzler? It was a color board you could get plug in the Model 1.
Chroma
TRS. The game, so it was kind of.
Chroma TRS, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, you're right. Dazzler was for some other system.
That was Chromico.
Okay. Well, I wasn't a game person, so it was fun to build. I bought the kit, put it together, used it a few times, and I guess it's in a box somewhere. I don't know.
Cool.
I guess that's probably about TRS-80 Model 1.
Yeah. So did you hang on to it? Have you still got it?
That went into a box when I got married, and when I got divorced, it's still in the box. After I got divorced, I started collecting Sun Spark systems. So those are the only things that are not in a boxed up downstairs. I also have in boxes that people gave me a complete 4K level 1 basic system. Some friend that was a purist, believing anything beyond that was not a home computer or something. I'm not really sure what the story was. But he said he would never go beyond 4K, never go beyond level 1 basic. And I also should have a full rate standard 48K expansion interface unit that another friend gave me.
But you have your TRS-80 S100 adapter in the box down in your basement?
I actually have two S100 adapters because initially I bought the one that plugs into a motherboard because I was going to have a lot of boards having the memory on there. After I put memory into the keyboard, I didn't need all those slots in S100, so I bought the one that's got a 4-slot motherboard built into it. So all I had been was 3 boards: the modem, the printer, and the disk controller, and it took up less space on the shelf. So I actually have 2.
Oh, you need to bring that to Tandy assembly.
I also lost money on it. I also lost money on the first one that was a ripoff. If you're aware of that.
I'd love to see that.
They
It'll be
weren't
good to
bad.
see them. There's a lot of talk in the Model 1 community about the potential of connecting it to S100 devices, but so few people did them that finding the interfaces is very difficult. So the fact that you've got them means that we'd love to have a look at them at some point in time. Talk about the potential of reverse engineering them.
Well, I mean, like I said, no matter what, one's available for testing along to wherever will do the most use, for sure. Because I definitely don't need two of them. Even if I ever do, if I ever do get my system cleaned again, one is all I ever need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was sitting here. Other people were talking. I was curious. I remember there was a third-party extension interface. Do any of those exist? Somebody else made an extension interface.
There were a few aftermarket expansion interfaces, yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, from what I remember, none of them were specifically an S100 one. They were just improved versions of Tandy.
I mean, yeah, they were imitation Tandy ones. Does anybody have them? I don't recall ever seeing one in the museum inventory or anything, but I haven't really looked for it.
Not non-Tandy expansion interfaces? There were a few of them. There's W had one. Yeah, there were a few.
And do they exist in the wild now? Do people have them?
Oh yeah,
I have a few. The LNW one comes up from time to time. There's another one. I forget the name of it now. But they're about the only two that come up, and of course the original Tandy ones come up quite regularly in various conditions.
And wasn't there an imitation TRS-80 Model 1 from Australia or something too?
Oh, Eric is showing off his S100 adapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neat. That looks good.
I have two.
Yeah.
Yes, too.
Yeah. So to answer Kerry's question, as from something from Australia, I sell a little thing which allows you to connect a hard drive emulator called a Fred to a Model 1, but it's not a proper replacement for a expansion interface. It just adds the memory and makes the computer functional with a Fred hard drive emulator.
I mean, back when the Model 1 was an active computer sold by Radio Shack, I thought somebody else made an imitation Model 1 keyboard. Sold it.
Are you talking about the Dick Smith System 80?
Yeah, I think he means the Dick Smith system.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we like those as well. Yeah. All right. Cool. Kerry, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we will see you next month and at one of our future shows at Tandy Assembly or something. I see you're in Chicago, so not too far from Ohio. We got a lot of people from Chicago making the drive over to Tandy Assembly, so I hope to see you there. I go every year.
Get into those.
I do go to DCF Midwest.
We will see you
next
time. Cool. All right then. No worries, Kerry. Thanks, buddy. All right. Let's see who's next. Stu. I always put Stu on as soon as I can, possibly, because we don't want to forget Stu's game reviews. How you going, buddy?
Thanks, Mav. I'm good. I guess I've been streaming some TRS-80 stuff recently. I streamed Sargon actually, and people had to sit through me playing bad chess for like 45 minutes. Well, I did win against the lowest level, so that was good, I guess. And then did some more CeeLo magazine, including a text adventure called King Solomon. It's called Jungle Adventure Part 2: King Solomon's Mines by John Olson, I believe is the guy's name. He did a bunch of stuff. John R. Olson did a bunch of stuff back in the day. That was actually a lot of fun too. So that was good. And then actually, Peter mentioned Arno. He actually contacted me because he wrote a game apparently back when he was in college or something, and he was asking if I could stream his game. So I'm going to try to do that soon. Actually, it looks like I tried it. It's like really fun. It's a really professionally done for a college game. I mean, you would think it's like it was made by like Big Five or something like that. but plan to do that too. And then the other thing is I just bought a big stack of 80 US magazines off eBay. Turned out they were IRA's auction. I didn't even know that. And I've been reading them today, so having a good time. Still got a huge stack to go through, but it's always fun to read the old magazines and see the old ads and everything else. So that's what I've been doing.
Hey, Stu,
Which is what we're going to be doing in about 20 minutes time,
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
appreciating an old magazine
I want to
and,
mention that.
and looking through it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. And by the way, if anybody has the Load 80 that goes with that issue, I've been looking for it for a while. So if anybody has it and is willing to sell it, obviously let me know. But that issue that you picked has like they call it Galaxy Trek Adventure now, even though it's not actually it's not called that in the magazine. The title of the article is like Save Our Ship, but it's a Star Trek adventure game that I played back in the day when I was a kid, and I couldn't beat it back in the day. So I definitely, for nostalgia's sake, want to copy that tape, and I mean, I'll download it anyway, but having the original tape is more fun.
you want the physical copy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure I can download the tape, but like actually a copy of the physical would be like very nostalgic for me. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Hey, Stu, have you ever reviewed Roundup? I don't remember if you did or not.
I did. Yeah, it was good. It was everybody was. I was impressed by it. Everyone was talking about how good it was, and I think it was even better than Stampede actually, from my perspective, from like the Atari Stampede. So it
Yeah, I
was a
think
great TRS-80 game for sure. So shout out to Peter for that one.
Cool. Good on you, Stu. Let's see.
I just want to mention 8-Bit Wiz in the chat just mentioned he's ripped those Load 80 tapes just a few months ago.
Yeah, I'm sure I could get a ripped copy, or worst comes to worst, if there was nobody that ripped it, I would just scan it and like, feed it into the emulator or something. But I want the original. I have a bunch of original Load 80 tapes, but not that one. So anyway, but
I've
thanks.
got a
They're
lot
even
of
ASCII
Load
fied
80.
already too, so
What'd you say?
I have a lot of Load 80 tapes. I was a subscriber around that time, but I don't know where they all are. They're somewhere, probably under 6 other boxes of tapes.
If you ever find them, let me know.
I'll let you know. Yeah. All right. Have I covered everyone that's new? John Wilson, are you new? Yes, no, just a lurker. That's okay.
John's been before, has he? Yeah.
John Wilson. Nope.
Hey,
Okay. Well,
Randy Weaver's here.
yeah, I know. First time, Randy, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Ah, well, why don't you say so? Hey, buddy, what you doing?
Hey. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Randy Weaver. You've probably seen me if you've come to one of Cocoa Fest or Tandy Assembly. I usually do the AAV stuff there. Yeah, I'm just working on I'm supporting the upcoming Cocoa Fest sign up and registration at tandylist.com. And I've been working on my Radio Shack sign that Jim Brain helped me with. I'm trying to get it to be more portable and so it doesn't fall apart when you try to put it in a truck. But it's a pretty cool. It's I got all the individual Radio Shack letters. It used to be on top of a building, a radio, like a local Radio Shack, and we put some lights in it. And Jim made little controller boards so that I can control the sign and all the individual lights in each letter with a Coco. Firing off through the serial port in the back, so it doesn't even require anything else. It just the bit banger port on the back of the Coco. So yeah, I'm a Coco guy. When I was 11, I bought a Coco back in 1985. But first I bought a skateboard, and my mom told me I was going to kill myself, and then I started playing with it, and I hurt myself pretty bad, so I decided to take it back and get a Coco. So I could actually be a pro skater instead of a software developer, but unfortunately, that's how life ended up. So I am software developer for a waste management company.
Can I just say, I like how you say you bought a skateboard, you wiped out, and you could have been a pro skater, of course, for sure.
Yeah, I could have. I could have. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, how many times did Elon Musk fail before he was successful? Who knows? So, anyway.
Randy is also a board member of Tandy Assembly, and he is our resident audiovisual expert.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll be setting that all up again for this coming Tandy Assembly, getting all the presenters recorded and being as professional as we can.
We try.
People who see my weekly update on the Tandy Assembly Facebook page often see videos recorded by Randy from previous shows. So always appreciative of your work.
Yeah, I got into it not knowing anything about it, and now I'm actually pretty good at it, I think now. So at least the equipment gets better.
You
So
take it up a notch every year. It gets better and better.
yeah. So
yep. And we're going to have fun this year with the trivia game because I'm adding sound questions. Questions that are played with that are based on sound grabs that I play, and so Randy and I'll be working on that to make that happen. So yeah, if you need another reason to go to Tandy Assembly,
I've got a little Stream Deck thing, so that I can hit a button to be able to get your little sound effects in there, man. So it'll be really cool.
Oh, I got a good one. Like, is this 500 baud or 1500 baud? And you have to tell by listening to it.
Oh, dude, I love it.
Too easy. Or if you can identify the actual program loading by the sound of the cassette.
Yeah.
I used to be able to do that with a few back in the day, but not anymore.
Yeah, that's cool. All right then. Cool, Randy. Thanks for joining us. I see Peter Phillips. How you doing?
All right. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. You got to show us this time.
Oh, well, I do have something to show. I guess I spent a little bit of time with archiving stuff. There are some CPM disks that were needing sorting out. And if I just share my screen here. So Ira found a relatively old game that was, I think, Alien Invaders of some kind. But the disk would boot on the Model 1, but wouldn't boot in the emulator. So this is what we got. Comes up, there's a sort of screen, and then it just keeps looping. So I mean, I'm intrigued because maybe it's a problem with the emulator. So I took a look at it, took a little bit closer, and first I did a disk trace. I don't know if you can see this here. The trace just shows, I highlighted a bit, that it starts out, it reads the boot sector, and then the next thing it does, it reads track 0. Now read track is a low level operation that reads a byte at a time off the track. So if there's copy protection, this is where it's going to be happening. And looking around a little bit more, I was able to find out where the data went and who was reading it. So it came down to this little bit of assembler code here, which the green here shows where it gets an index into the buffer it read. And the comparison is it's looking for 7E hex. And when it finds it, it just messes around with it. It gets the byte after the 7E. Then it starts writing it back into the boot block. And these are my comments that it's like where it's going, and that it's because it's using XOR, it must be kind of like unobscuring some proper way to boot. So now that I knew that it was looking for 7E, the question was, well, why wasn't it finding it? So we go back to the disk trace. This is what you see, the data that came off the read block, which is a bunch of stuff. There's a 7E there. And then these ones in purple, this is like the, they call it the IDAM. It marks the actual sector, sector 0. And then here's the actual sector data, starting with the F8 mark. And then down here is a 7E, but it's followed by 0, and this is the wrong value. And so I quickly realized that this one was the right value, 5A. And with using the debugger, I could change that code at that point to put 5A in there, and then the game booted. And the question was like, what was going on exactly? The simple answer is that this 7E is appearing too quickly, right? It's less than 32 bytes into the buffer. But if you look at the code, it starts off indexing 31 bytes in, so it misses it. It starts maybe it starts about here at this FF and doesn't find it. But what was more fun really is that this is like a rare bird here, this FC. Well, there's two of them here. You don't see it here, but this is actually an index mark. So this FE here is like marks the start of the sector metadata, and this one F8 is a mark that marks the start of the actual data for the sector. But this one marks presumably where the index hole is or where the disk should start. It's never used on the TRS-80, and the controller chip doesn't do anything with it, but it does know how to generate it, and it does have a side effect in that it synchronizes the data. So the fix for the disk is simple, which is I just kind of copied these magic bytes down a little bit farther, and then it boots fine. Now the bytes are farther down the sector, and it gets going.
Why did it work on an actual machine? You know?
Yeah, my belief is that when the DMK was converted, the cat weasel to DMK, it decided to put the FC kind of close to the start for whatever reason. In the actual flux image, it was farther down the line. So I don't know why it decided to move it. It's the last little bit of trivia here is that I talked about this FC being a marker byte. And why it matters is that when you see this read block data, this is a little bit artificial. It's like things are very byte aligned because the DMK format aligns it. But in reality, when you have a disk, there's timing variations. So it might read a bunch of garbage here or some kind of misaligned version until it hits the FC mark, then it will line up. And then we'll get the 7E data we're looking for in the 5A, because at that point, we're now aligned to the byte stream. I'll try to illustrate this. I wrote a couple of programs. The thing about the disk is that, now I know there's some real experts out there, so if I say something wrong, it's like, sorry. But you can't just write zeros and ones. You have to kind of encode the data so it's got a basic frequency to it so that the low-level hardware can lock on. And it looks something like this, that you've got a clock, and in the normal case, it's just a bunch of ones, a bunch of these little pulses. And then right after the clock, you've got the data. And then in hex, that'll be interleaved. So we could call this AAAA because it's 101010. And then we suppose you want to encode a bunch of Fs. Well, then it's just the clocks are all one and the datas are all ones. And this is the problem. If you're looking at this stream, it's like there's an FF in here somewhere, but where does it start? It could start here, maybe, but you don't know. So you've got this. The problem is you have to synchronize with this stream because there's no there's no difference between the bits. And just for the sample, whoops, let me run this one. This is what the mark actually looks like. That if you put an actual FC byte on the disk, then the clocks would all be ones, and the data would be literally FC. But the actual mark, what they do is they knock out some of the clocks. So the third bit here and the fifth bit are 0. So now the signal has this little notch in it. And as the disk is going around, it keeps bringing in a bit at a time until it sees this mark, and then it knows that from there on it'll line up the data register so that it will start with this mark value. And finally, I did have to change the emulator because the FC mark wasn't used. When you have a flux version like the HFE format, it wouldn't work in the emulator because the data isn't aligned and it would not line up. So I had to add that if you see an FC mark, you have to line up. And I think if you're converting DMKs, it would be wise that if you see FCs in between the sector data, you should probably convert them to index marks. But that's an obscure case anyways. So yeah, that was like the small adventure there.
What was the game worth it?
The game was never worth it. That's it's just a rule.
I mean, for the learning, obviously it was, but I'm just wondering, with that much copy protection for this game.
It's well, I guess they made it worth it my while, like 40 years later. So you can judge for yourself. It's not bad.
Oh, gotcha. Install. Okay.
Yeah, I think the bullet should drop. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that.
No.
I don't know if you can hear the sound. Well, that's fortunate. It's quite a loud beep.
Why is the Empire State Building shooting aliens?
Yeah.
That's pretty big aliens if that's the Empire State Building.
It's a freedom thing. Yeah, it's actually pretty fun. It's pretty fun. But the only complaint I have is that the bullet should probably drop a little faster. But all right, okay, one more. We're gonna finish off the wave. There we go. And so it continues. Oh, okay. Sorry, it beeps very loudly when you lose. So yeah, that was my small disk adventure.
Excellent. Hey, Mav, you there? Yeah, we don't hear you. Mav, we can't hear you.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just reading through the 80 micro issue while Peter was explaining to us about the game there. Well, it's close enough to the halfway mark. So I'm going to one of the things that Pete mentioned to me that we used to do as part of the podcast, and we'll continue to do it when we do the next podcast, is we look at a book or a magazine and talk about our thoughts about it. So we've picked one, or Peter's picked one. It's a good one, which is the 80 micro August 1982, which is the annual games issue. My thoughts on it before I hand it over to Pete to talk about is that it's it's the second last games issue, and it's from the era of 80 micro where these were the big 400 page, 402 pages extravaganza era. So it's yeah, Dusty's got one too. If you've got one at the moment, hold it up. Yeah, we've all got them. Yeah, that's the one. And so this is really from the golden era of 80 micro. If you liked the big thick issues, and with Wayne Green at the helm of it. So these are this is at the time that the TRS-80 was at its peak popularity. The Model 1 had been discontinued. The Model 3 was the king of Tandy's sales, even though the Coco was on the market as well. The thing about 80 micro at this time was that by the time so I call this the second last annual games issue. The last one came along in 1983. Each year, 80 micro would run a poll to see what readers were interested in, and by the middle of or end of 1983, they basically said, we're not that interested in games on the Model 1 and 3 and 4 computer, and the gamers who are interested in games have moved on to other platforms like the color computer. So the 80 micro issues themselves started to get thinner, but they also had more technical and application-based content rather than games. So these games issues are interesting in that they have a lot of games, a lot to type in if you're into typing in games and of all sorts of different genres. So I've just you can see I've marked 3 things here that struck out to me. I'll just go through them quickly, and people can then give us their own thoughts on them. So on the first one I see on page 27 is a big color advertisement from Computers Plus, and they were selling Tandy stuff at cheaper than Tandy's prices all the way right until the end of 80 micro and even beyond the end of 80 micro. So that's page 27.
Yeah, they were a huge advertiser in Rainbow for quite a long time too. So
yeah. And they would tailor their ads, but whatever Tandy was selling at the time, they would undercut them as a franchise dealer. So that's that one there. If we had a comparison of Tandy's prices, you could see that there's big savings here. And I never really understood if Tandy liked or hated this sort of thing, but it was always prevalent, and a lot of people bought their first computers this way and saved their money as far as Tandy charging. If you got to save money, you're going to save money. It was the 80s. All right.
When you look at these old ads, you always have to remember, I mean, you look at the price of that Model 16, right? $4,299.
Yep.
You think of that in today's dollars, that's got to be like $14,000. That's like, would you spend that much money on a computer today? It's like,
well, you wouldn't. And back then you could buy a small hatchback or a decent motorcycle for that sort of money. So,
yeah, even the Model 3, $2,000 today, that's $6,000 for a Model 3.
Yeah. Don't tell people that's how much I spent on them back when they were new.
Well, back in the day.
Another good point, like just it took me up in the UK. You got here Model 3 16 key for $839. In the UK, that would be £839. And at the time, I think the dollar rate was about 2.1 to the pound. So we were paying twice practically what the stuff was fetching in the States.
Yeah. It's kind of, I can understand why it didn't really take off in Europe and England as it did. We were taxed as well in Australia with it. We had a deflated dollar and we were taxed, but because we didn't have a microcomputer industry as such, we had a small one, but not a big one like the UK has. Tandy got a good foothold in the industry here. So that's my thoughts on Computer Plus. They were around forever, and it's good to see their old ad there. So moving along to page 107 is a very early ad for there it is, replacement CRT tubes, and we all love a lot of us love the amber tube. But you got to remember, these computers came out with black and white television style picture tubes, so any replacement it was better than the standard tube. But what fascinated me was that these were marketed to people who are non-technical and came with instructions for basically non-electronics people to replace their CRT themselves. Now, in this era of sort of bubble wrapped human beings, you wouldn't think that most people would that a company would even encourage people to open their computer, pull a high voltage picture tube out and replace it. But that's what it was like in 82. So Langley Sinclair was the company that sold them, and I have 2 systems with official Langley Sinclair soft view replacement CRTs in them, and they still run as good as when they were converted back in the 80s, and I still use them regularly. So that was a common upgrade for those things. Did
Well-
anyone here buy replacement tubes at the time in the 80s and replace them? Nope. Crickets.
I was going to say,
No.
the Model 2 with an amber screen is such a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
I
does
didn't
look
buy
good.
one back in the day, but I did buy a new in-box amber one a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yep. When they were still available, but yeah. The what was that, Paul? You were saying? Okay, Paul from New Hampshire was just saying that yeah, if your dad was a TV tech, then he had all the tools and skills. He could probably do it in about 15 minutes flat, I reckon. So yeah. And just quickly, the last one I want to look at is on page 246. Is an Aerocomp ad for a double density controller. And what's interesting about those was that it was one of the last and probably the best double density controllers. And they were available right through to the 90s. You could still buy them from Computer News 80 in 1993 or 4. You could still buy these things. So either well, I'm going to assume because I'm a logical thinker that it's possible that Aerocomp had so many of these made that it just lasted all the way through to the 90s. But these were probably the best of the basic double density adapters for the Model 1, and so they're still this is an early ad, so it was still available to purchase 12 years later. So I've monopolized enough time on this issue, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Peter, and you can give me your thoughts, and then we'll go around and see what everyone else has to say about it.
Oh yeah, sure. I've got a couple of items to mention, but I just want to mention on this DDC, I have one of these. I shared it on Facebook, I think a week or two ago. Still in the original box, so they're pretty cool. Let's see. Let's go to page 8. I think it's going to be on page 8. So this is the 80 remarks section, of course, by the legendary Wayne Green. Always an interesting character, always had something controversial to say, right?
Yep.
And this one hits pretty, very close to my heart, where he talks about the Model 2, and he's going on about the lack of software for the Model 2. Remember, this is 1982. The Model 2's been out already for a couple of years. And he's basically talking about how the Model 2 is essentially a failure. So I think he's wrong in that respect. The Model 2 was actually a very successful computer for what it did. It ran many thousands of small to medium businesses all across the United States for many years. So I'm not sure where he's going with that. He even talked about one of the big problems with the Model 2 is a lack of a cassette interface for backups. I mean, nobody's going to back up their business critical data on a freaking cassette. You know what I'm talking? So I'm not sure where I feel like he's just coming up with controversy to stir the pot, and knowing Wayne Green, that could be the case. And if you look at this section right here, he even talks about the cost. What is he saying? He's saying the cost, if you use cassettes instead of disks for backup, the cost of a program can be reduced by $10 to $15 just by saving the cost in the medium. Was a cassette actually $10 to $15 cheaper than an 8-inch floppy disk back in the day? I don't think it was. I think they were comparable, right? So, yeah, Wayne Green, I don't know, buddy.
He did the same thing with the Coco too, just to mention.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, he said the Coco was a failure, it was going to drop out of the market, and then a year later he split out and made hot cocoa. So
if there was money,
he does have some wild things to say.
Yeah, I disagree with that because I worked for a company called Exabyte in Boulder, Colorado, that made cassette-based libraries, robotic libraries that back in those days, this would be the mid 90s. That was the best way to get a massive amount of data stored somewhere, because disk drives just were not that big back then. They just weren't. And so companies bought these tape libraries, and they were these robotic things that would, shift in tapes and shift out tapes. And they made a lot of money on them, but now they're out of business because disk drives got bigger.
Well, yeah, that's a little different from the standard audio cassettes he was talking about,
Well, we were with Sony making 6 millimeter tapes and 8 millimeter tapes. This thing called Mammoth, and yeah, they were different than your standard cassette tape. They were, but still, companies backed up stuff on tape.
Sure. All right, so a couple of other items I found. One thing I thought was really interesting when I was reading through this today was this letter from Todd Anderson from Fayetteville, North Carolina. It would be really neat if we found a letter in here from somebody on this call, right? That would be really sweet if we ever found that. But I don't know if any of you know about this. There's actually a bug in Armored Patrol where if you find the opening in the mountain and drive straight into it and you do a 180-degree turn, basically the enemy tank cannot hit you. And you can just fire all day and just build up your score. And I think he said he got 317,000 here. And then the editors, I did not prove if this is the case. They may have fixed the bug in later versions, but the editors said he's right. And they were able to get up to 281,000 points in Armor Patrol. So I thought that was pretty fun. And on this same page, there was a letter from Ted Carter of Microlabs talking about the 80 graphics. And I was really surprised when he mentioned this was about a particular character board, 80 graphics programmable character board for the Model 1 that they're supporting. And he mentioned that the designers of the board have decided to help the several thousand graphic board owners. So were there only a couple thousand 80 graphics boards sold? That was surprising to me. I would have expected there were more than that. And given this is 1982, if this is for the Model 1, probably most of them were sold at that time. So they only sold a couple thousand 80 graphics boards. A little surprising to me. I don't know. Anybody else think that's surprising or?
Those were the character-based ones that took a lot of work to put into a machine, weren't they?
That's the one.
Yeah, it did seem to be more popular than that. It did.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And then on page 37, this was a really nice article by Michael Nedo talking about this book, Basic Adventures. And the actual book
is the Captain 80 book of Basic Adventures.
Yeah, it's actually this one. I'm not sharing it, but it's the Captain 80 book of Basic Adventures, which I was actually able to find a digital copy on the Internet Archive today. Really fascinating book, and I'm going to read through it. The copy that they scanned was really old and beat up and yellow, but all the content is there.
Yeah, I got a copy here.
You have the copy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh, you have a paper copy. Nice.
Yeah, it's a nice book.
It's thick, right?
It's pretty thick.
Yeah.
It's like 250 pages.
Yep. So Bob Little wrote that book. Bob Little was a guy who founded the Programmers Guild back in the day, and they were a publisher and I guess an agency for a lot of authors and titles back in the day. And they were big into publishing adventure games like what do I have here? The Lost Dutchman's Gold, Spider Mountain. There was one called Death Dreadnought, which was actually had a self-assigned R rating due to its core content, and that was the only way Wayne Green would allow them to advertise in 80 Micro. So I thought that was really interesting. And that company was also represented Leo Christopherson as an agent. So really interesting read, this article. I would read it, and I did a little more searching on Bob Little on the net, found out all this interesting information. That Basic Adventures book was apparently like the Bible for writing basic adventure games back in the day. And once that book was released, there were a ton of adventure games published of people who read it and, used the algorithms and the patterns that were established by that book. So many of the basic adventure games that were released back in the day were based on this book being released. So really interesting read
Yeah,
through.
the book was published by 80 Northwest Publishing, which is also interesting. That's the company body in the US, and Leo Christopherson obviously was totally very tied to that company. So
yeah, very cool.
I had that book, but my adventure games that I wrote were blatant ripoffs of Scott Adams.
Okay, one more. I'm gonna go to page 181. I always like to give a shout out to the MTI machines. These are the souped up Model 3s that Microcomputer Technology released. So I always like to see these ads and see the different models they had available. The Model 3 Plus, 240, the 280, and the top of the line, the Winchester, the Model 3 Winchester with the built-in hard drive. It's still a machine. I have a couple of MTI machines. They're not the Winchester machines, but I do want to take one of them and convert them into a Winchester machine and put a real 5 1/4 full-size hard drive in one of the drive bays. I think that would be so really cool project to do. So looking forward to doing that. I'm gonna maybe hand it over a little bit to George now, because George told me he was able to get the Load 80 software running, and we wanted to just sort of demo a couple of the games, because this is the games issue, the annual games issue of microcomputing. So George is going to maybe just share a screen and demo a few of the more pleasant games that were actually listed in, so you all don't have to like manually type them in. George, you want to share something?
Yeah, we'll give it a try. I'm not sure if the disk conversion worked as well as I thought it did at first, but we'll see what happens. Oh, it says I can't share while there's someone else is sharing.
I need to stop sharing. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. I got the Model 3 up.
Yep.
See the various games on here. Oops, colon 1. How about that? Well, I know Slalom/Pass works, so we'll try that one anyways. It's super simple.
This is a game I actually remember. We had a TRS-80 Model 1 in our physics lab at my high school, which hadn't been used for quite a while. And this 80 micro I bought, and that fall when I went back to school, I asked if I could use it, and I actually typed this one in and tried it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's just the classic, print the course at the bottom of the screen and have it scroll up. But nice use of the graphics to give it the pull effect.
Yeah, it was a nice, really short one. Ran in 4K too, if I remember.
I imagine it would, yeah.
I'll double check.
And I think that's my score in the top right, but it never seems to go above 0. So I'm not doing it right, whatever I'm doing.
Oh, are those the skis up at top in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you do actually get to the end of it. See what difficulty 3 is like.
Yeah, 4K of RAM. So yeah, that was the one I typed in. 1 page or half a page.
Okay, yeah, difficulty 3. Oh, I see that. The score is the number of things you hit. So
we're totally gonna die.
Yeah.
This is like Stu's skateboarding in action here.
Yeah, Sunny Bono Simulator.
Too soon.
Yeah, too soon, man. Too soon.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been, what, 30 years, you know?
I got you, man.
Share could be lurking.
Oh.
No, different course, please.
Yeah, it is a pretty short program. You could almost stand to type that one in.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing for such a short program.
I did type it in. I don't remember taking too long. Though I remember that was the first time I'd ever encountered key bounce because I had been using the Cocoa and the Apple II up till then. That was a little bit frustrating.
You know, subs versus choppers. This one didn't seem to work, but it's got a nice intro, anyways.
Does the basic for Model 1 and Model 3 let you renumber a program if you run out of lines like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Does it let you renumber it?
If you have the disk or if you load the cassette utility, yes, but it's not built into the ROM.
It's too bad. I remember playing sub and choppers, I think.
I think I'd rather be in the sub.
Intro here.
Those are sandwiches and motorcycles.
Be a parking lot.
Huh. Before it did actually do a bit of a demo here, but I'm trying to fast forward with turbo mode and it's not happening. Oh great, disabled the brake key. Try something else. Oh, there's a slot machine. Slot. Oh yeah, see, undefined line number. These programs didn't get it converted properly.
Oh.
Are these OCR conversions from the magazine?
The
George?
diskette was new DOS 80. So I did a Tris read to dump all the files, and Tris wrote them back onto a traditional Tris DOS disk, and that seems to have screwed them up in the process.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I got that disc from. One of the archives many years ago. Somebody had transferred them from the Load 80 cassettes to DOS 80 discs.
Oh, this looks like a Rubik's Cube solver. Enter the center square color on the top. Oh, geez. How about blue? Front? No, this is not going to be good.
Can you run the Star Trek game?
Model 1s don't tend to do a lot of color.
See what Trek 1 is. Oh yeah, this is another one word.
This is it. This is it. I just want to say really quickly, when I was a kid, I tried to play this game. I got stuck. I couldn't figure it out. So I went out to CompuServe and I found a walkthrough. And in the walkthrough, it said, "Do this or whatever I had done." And it said, "Beam down to the planet." So I was in the transporter room in the game, and I was like, "Beam down." Don't understand. Energize transporter. Don't understand. I tried like everything I could think of.
What kind of language is that?
Oh, that's broken.
Klingon.
It's
Klingon.
encrypted. The listing is encrypted, so I guess it's something that got screwed up. But I tried everything in the world to beam down to this planet, and I could not ever do it. So I want to try it again at some point.
Yeah, I do remember this one had all the text strings, I think, encrypted, like with shifting the ASCII character and stuff. And so they had a little decryptor. If you got stuck, you could type in or something to decode some of the words.
Yeah, the listing is encrypted.
I get the feeling,
which makes it harder to debug if you type something wrong, of course. But anyway,
George, you've been hacked, George.
I think Trek 2 might be the encryption program for it. I suspect.
That's like bad Russian.
Is there a good Russian? Oh, sorry.
I think you were hacked by Big Blue. I saw IBM in there somewhere.
Are you dumping the ROMs there or something?
I'm not sure what's happening there. Well, let's try Kung Fu.
I think you need to merge part 1 with part 2.
Out of date at 70. Oh my goodness.
Not going so well.
Yeah, well, so in theory we have some of the games here, but in practice we do not.
They're full of syntax errors. Yeah.
Yeah. Better luck
cool.
next
Oh,
time.
that was a nice that was a pretty good first try at a magazine review. Next time, George, we'll test run the the games. What do you reckon?
Yeah, this was a last minute thing. I just thought of this yesterday, so this is
Yeah, yeah. I'm
But-
always up for trying something new. So,
Does anybody else have anything that they?
I do, but if anybody else wants to go first, they can.
You can go, Curtis.
Okay. So one I just want to mention, like an honorable mention, there's a Model 2 game. And as you were mentioning before, the Model 2s generally weren't used for games, but on page 212, there's Sub Destroy for the Model 2. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I'd never, like, I saw a few Model 2s at the computer center and stuff, but I never saw a game running on that ever. So I was kind of surprised they actually put one in there.
What page was that on?
212.
Yes, Model 2 games. Nothing like it.
Which I'm assuming it's a battleship type game. I never did see this one run, but
So one of the things I wanted to mention about this era of 80 micro is for a short time in 1982 and 3, 80 micro tried to cover all TRS-80 systems. So they didn't just do Model 1, 3, and 4. They had articles for the Model 2, for the pocket computer, for the color computer. They had some articles, and then at the end of the Wayne Green era, they just decided the magazine's too thick and too disjointed, and so that's where they just settled on the 8-bit monochrome systems, Model 1, 3, and 4, and 4P, and so. Yeah, this is going to be where one of the few of the games for the Model 2 8-inch systems will be found. You'll be able to find them in the era of the issues. So yeah, and Wayne Green's comment about the popularity of the Model 2 versus the Model 1, I think that probably at the time he was thinking that the Model 2 was going to be as successful as the Model 1, but they probably didn't even sell, one for every 15 Model 1 systems.
just because of cost, I think, unless you were like a fairly good sized business, it was hard to justify, I think.
When Radio Shack released the Model 2, they would have had, sales figures in mind of what would be considered as a success. And obviously it met the requirements for being a success because it morphed into the Model 12 and 16 and so on. So it's also possible that Wayne Green's numbers are skewed because he would get them from the reader feedback. And if only, for every 100 subscribers, one subscriber owns a Model 2, then he thinks, well, there's hardly any Model 2s out there. So, yeah.
It was supposed to be, the business computer, right? And businesses are supposed to have plenty of money to buy computers, but it just didn't really happen. It's the same reasoning, in a way, as my pricing model for my products. People who buy things from me or from you, Ian, they've got stable jobs, they've got families, and a couple $100 is not a big deal. That's just the way it is. And that was the reason why my stuff costs so much. And that's probably the reason why the Model 2 costs so much, or costed so much, is that, the people who were buying them were supposed to have a lot of money.
I do know that when I obtain a Model 2, they've invariably had a lot of use, a lot of use. Whoever put down the hard-earned cash to buy one used the crap out of it. I very rarely, in Australia at least, see low mileage Model 2s. The keyboards, shiny. The disk drives are worn out and noisy. They use them, daily for the whole of the time that they had them. So they got their money's worth out of them. But what I was kind of saying before was that Tandy knew when they designed the Model 2 that the sort of low end and budget user isn't going to buy it. It's going to be business people, and a lot of the business people that buy it are going to buy word processing, accounts receivable, and a daisy wheel printer, and never pick up a copy of 80 micro. So
it was a very capable machine, and it was
Yeah,
superior.
and then Satinsky bought them all.
Even when you compare it to its contemporaries, the original IBM PC, it was superior to the IBM PC, the original IBM PC in many ways. Its biggest Achilles heel really was the Radio Shack name on it, because a lot of serious businesses wouldn't take Radio Shack seriously as a business computer, even though it was a great business computer. So
yeah, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be for smaller businesses? I mean,
what, Randy?
Oh, you got muted, Randy.
oh, am I muted now?
Nope,
No.
you're back.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was playing a game with him.
Oh, you're muted again.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Randy in a moment.
Well, I was
all
going
right.
to say quickly, Matt, like regarding the cost, I think disk drives were just super expensive back then too. It wasn't just that they were jacking the price up. Disk drives were expensive.
Yeah, they were.
So
How did the cost compare contemporaries, like say the 5150 to the Model 2 system in the day? Was that a contributing factor? Why?
They were pretty equivalent, right, price-wise?
I think so. I think 5150.
Yeah, because that would have been 81 when the PC came out, right? And the Model 2 originally came out in 79.
Yeah, that's true. It came out earlier.
You know, how close to the end of 8-inch drives was the Model 2?
Right there.
It was right there in the. It was right there in the thick of it. If you want to talk about 8-inch drives, the ultimate penultimate one was the Model 6000, which was selling a computer with 8-inch drives in '87, which is a full, pretty much 6 years after practically every other manufacturer had moved away from 8-inch drives. In fact, most manufacturers moved away from 5.25-inch drives by '87. But you could still in '87 buy from Radio Shack a Model 6000 with an 8-inch drive, or a Model 4D with 5.25-inch drives, as well as around the corner 88 a Tandy 1000 with 3.5-inch drives. So they were I don't know, trying to eke every last sale out of vintage technology even before it was considered a thing. But,
yeah, we when I first started working in 1987, designing chips, we had workstations and we had disk drives, and the big ones were 8-inch, and you took this thing that looked like a platter and stuck it in the drive.
Many of us still do. Well, I make products for Model 2s. I have to deal with those suckers every week. So, yeah. But
you got time for a couple more little picks from you here on the issue? Or?
Yeah, go for it.
So page 114, this one gets an honorable mention for you too, because it's actually a head-to-head. You hook two TRS-80 Model 1s or 3s together, and you play Battleship against each other on two computers simultaneously, hooked up through the cassette port.
Oh, very
That's
cool.
kind of cool.
You sunk my battleship.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had at the last Cocoa Fest, we had the P-51 Mustang Attack Flight Simulator, which is a 2-player flight simulator to play head-to-head, and it would be fun to see this at a Tandy assembly where somebody's playing live against somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, so how do they connect the computers? I'm very curious here.
I think it mentions on the far right there.
They use the cassette port. That's like the Model 2 couldn't do that.
Some kind of a crossover cable?
Scroll down. It should have how to make.
Yeah, it's on the first page of the article on the far right column. It talks about setting up the cassettes to do it. Cassette cables.
300 baud battleship is not really a good idea.
Remove the black plug from your recorder and the black plug from your partner's recorder. Plug in yours where his was, and his where yours was. Okay. Make sure not to remove the gray plugs. Open the cassette door and push in the tab. Hold it in while pushing down the record and play loud. Okay. They just cross-wired the
read and write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Got to try it.
I think the cassettes are important because you need amplification.
Okay. Yep.
It's a way to hide the
anyone
boards from each other, so you don't see. You have to kind of trust the people as you're switching players normally on a one computer version. So,
Did
They'd
anyone
have to be
actually
back to
do
back.
this?
I didn't have them on 1 and 3 at the time, so I definitely didn't. But and we only had one at school. I couldn't have tried it if I wanted to. I just thought it was interesting. There was a couple of pretty innovative ones, a Model 2 game and then the head-to-head game. The other two articles I wanted to mention, and they're not computer related as much, is the interview of the people doing the graphics for the Tron movie, and they were explaining how they were downloading these super high-res graphics from Japan to the States at 1,200 baud or something like that. Take hours per frame.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, and
that was fascinating.
The way they actually recorded frame by frame by pointing the movie camera at the CRT. They'd render one image, take the frame, and they do that.
Yeah, there were some other magazines at the time that were also covering Tron because of a big hype up, a computer generated, partially anyway, movie. But the 80 micro one, I think, went into the most technical details, and that, like you'd mentioned on the Discord, Peter, that you're wondering, like, it's not really one of their types of articles. It doesn't touch the TRS-80 at all. But I think it was just the fascination of high-res computer graphics coming in the future.
Yeah.
And the other one is the sorry, good.
Go on, Curtis.
I was just gonna say the other one I really liked was the interview with Leo Christopherson, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. Of course, he did a lot of some of the best animations on the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3 with Voyage and Android Nim and Dancing Demon and all the rest of it. And at the very last paragraph of the article where they interviewed him, they actually talk about he just started working in the color computer, and that was actually ended up being the game Clondafthu that came out not too long afterwards, which also had really good animations. And that was based on the Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. And then in one of the internal Tandy magazines for the employees, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head for the States version, but they talked to Leo Christopherson, who's actually apparently was doing a second game too, but that never got released. So I don't know what happened to that one, but it sounded like he was well under his way. And there's a couple Coco games in there I did type in back in the day. There's a Missile Defense, which is kind of a combination of Space Invaders and Missile Command at the same time. You got to shoot the lines up, but you also have aliens flying at you at the same time. And then there was another little small game, a sort of a artillery style game that I typed in back then. But my 80 micro was completely beat up. Like I've lost the back cover, and it's pages are falling off and stuff. And I've only got one other magazine that's
new, didn't you?
What? Yeah, I bought it new, brand new.
Yeah.
Like the front cover is totally off. The only other magazine I have for my Coco stuff that's in worse shape than this one is the exact same month of Rainbow, because it was at this time I discovered there's more than just Radio Shack for all this stuff. I had no idea about third party because our local Radio Shack store wasn't going to tell you that.
Right.
And then a computer store that normally dealt with Apple IIs suddenly decided to bring in that summer a bunch of magazines for Ataris and TI 99s and all these other computers, and 80 micro and Rainbow were two of the ones they happened to pick. And that's where I discovered there is a third party market. I had no idea up until this point.
All right. Okay, I think that's it for the magazine for this time, and I think that I could consider that to be a success. We'll have to revisit one next time. Now, because we've got around 20 minutes to go, but a lot of people here, I'm gonna ask if people have anything they want to say to put their hand up, and I'll go through them quickly. So, Eric Dittman, go for it.
Yeah, talking earlier about the magazine, about the ads for the stores, franchise stores and stuff, advertising at cheaper prices. I know I bought my Model 4D or 4GA out of 80 micro from one of the sellers, and it arrived dead. So I, of course, had to take it to the local Radio Shack that was a corporate store, and they really weren't happy about that because the store didn't get the credit for the sale and the salesman didn't get it. So I don't know about Radio Shack corporate offices, but I know the local stores didn't care for that because they lost the numbers and the commissions they would have made.
Yeah. Yeah, Tandy's policy in Australia was it didn't matter what store you bought a item from, you could take it to any Tandy store in Australia and they would fix it or repair it or whatever. But we didn't have that aftermarket of cheap resellers or whatever, which could take away profits from corporate branches. So yeah. Cool, Eric. While I got you, looking forward to VCF Southwest.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Everything
think it'll be
coming
good.
along good?
I've got a couple of tables, to represent Tandy Assembly there. So
Awesome.
working
All
on the
right.
display on that.
Cool. All
Just
right.
so everybody knows, yeah, that is a Tandy Assembly meetup at VCF Southwest side. Eric is now a board member of Tandy Assembly, so he's going to be representing.
Yeah, we've been plugging that on the Coco Nation. Actually, I didn't mention Eric by name, but I did mention you guys are doing a Tandy Assembly meetup.
Yeah, it'd be good to have Coco representation at that thing as well.
Yeah, I think Brendan and a few others do go down there, so there's a few Coco people down there.
Yeah, last year Brendan was there, and Boise said that because we talked at Tandy Assembly, last year, and he goes, "Oh, if you can do something with them, I really want to come down." So I don't know. I don't know if he's said anything to the other people about it. Do you know, Jay, if Boise said anything?
Said anything about what?
Coming to VCF Southwest and setting up some kind of presentation, getting a table or so. Okay, good.
Yeah. Boise's coming, and in fact, he'll be giving a presentation on his efforts to port. I think there's an operating system he's trying to port to one of the modern Phoenix retro computers by Stephanie Allaire. But yeah, he'll be around, and in fact, he's also working with Gil Carrick, who I don't know if y'all know was a showrunner for VCF Southwest back in the old days, before it went on hiatus for a number of years. So Gil Carrick was the recipient of, I guess you could say, kind of the official Tandy collection from Tandy themselves when they shut down or sold off the microcomputer division. They basically gave him an entire collection personally. So he still has those items. So Boise is going to be working with him to see what we can pull out of storage, and if there's notable cool items we can display and demonstrate to the attendees.
Just for the record, where and when is VCS Southwest?
Sure, it's in Dallas, Texas, June 14th through 16th. Be held at the University of Texas in Dallas. It's actually technically in Richardson, but
all right,
we claim
thank
it as
you.
Dallas. But
it's
yeah,
really a nice campus.
Okay, guys, moving right along. Curtis, you said you had your hand up a moment ago. You had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I've got two major projects that are kind of on the way, and they're kind of bartering for my time. One is the next release of Nitrous 9 Ease of Use 1.01, which is going to have a bunch of bug fixes and extra third-party software and stuff. So that's should be out by Coco Fest. And of course, if you guys have been following the Coco Nation, one of our people, Brian Weasler, managed to get one of the deluxe Coco prototypes, which I think only Boise so far has had before this, but ours actually, because it was arranged to get from Robert Kilgus, who did some stuff on the TRS-80 Model 1.3, like scripts it and stuff, and he did skiing and Quasar Commander Dino Wars for the Coco. But he still had his development deluxe computer with the actual, one of the early betas of the deluxe's ROMs. And I think as far as I know, Boise's just had stock ROMs in, so we have a whole bunch of extra commands and stuff that, talks to the sound chip and the serial port and a whole bunch of other things. So Tim Linder and I are busily disassembling the ROMs. It's a 32K ROM. We're hoping to have a kind of commented listing by the time Coco Fest comes around as well. And Tim just managed to get the 2.263 release of MAME. If you go grab that, actually has support for the deluxe computer, and the ROM image is up on the Color Computer Archive. So if you actually want to fiddle around with it and try it, you actually can. Now, there's a few bits of the hardware we're not quite sure what they do, so not emulated in MAME yet. There's a new option control register. There's a couple bits that Robert's notes say, aren't connected, but the ROMs are actually talking to them, so obviously they are. So we're still trying to figure out some stuff, but most of it's emulated now too if you want to try it. And it's got stuff like a full screen editor and a built-in terminal program and a whole bunch of stuff, so it's pretty cool.
You might want to explain to them a bit of the history of the deluxe Coco.
I don't know if we have time.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'll let you guys judge. I don't know how much more you got to get in the show here, so I don't want to hog it all.
Well, since we've got Nick there, Nick, can you give us a sort of 50-word describe the history of the deluxe color computer, or otherwise?
Oh, me. 50. Curtis is better at talking about that, so I'll pass it on to Curtis.
Okay. In 1983, late 83, they started working on the deluxe color computer, and the plan was they're going to use the new T1 VDG, which has true lowercase, and they wanted to add in some extra stuff. So they wanted to get it more competitive with some of the other 8-bit machines out there. So they added one of the AY sound chips, which is a fairly standard one, 3 voice and 1 noise channel, and 6551 bass RS-232 port. It also had the deluxe keyboard, which added the same 4 keys that the Coco 3 has. And that is one of the part of the project that actually still got sold by Tandy in a baggie for $39. You can go buy the deluxe keyboard. You can tell the difference between that and the Coco 3 because the Coco 3 has a gray background plastic around it, and the deluxe had a black one. So if you have a black one with the F1, F2 Alta control, you've got a deluxe keyboard. So there was that in there too. There's some extra interrupt sources. There was a new advanced ROM, like I mentioned before, has a full screen editor, a whole bunch of new commands, the ability to chain programs together, keeping the variables going. Terminal program, which from what I just discovered yesterday, seems to have some VT52 support as well, though not complete. And we've got an earlier beta version of the ROM. I think it's 0.0.7, so it's not the official release. And from what Mark Siegel's told me, there was a fair bit of other stuff added even after that, or at least, kind of fixed up. But originally, they were planning on releasing this right around the same. Well, they wanted it out by Christmas of '84, basically. And the Motorola at the time was having a bit of a problem generating VDG chips because now they had to make them for the Coco 2, which is a hot seller at the time. They had the MC10 still getting sold at the time. And now they wanted to add a different version of it that had the true lowercase and some pins moved around to handle the deluxe. And Motorola said, we can't keep up with all of this for the size of the orders you're going. So Tandy had to make a decision on what to drop. They eventually dropped both the MC10 and the deluxe. And from what Marcus said, they actually had circuit boards finished, not populated yet, but completely finished. The documentation was done. The ROMs were finalized with Microsoft. It was about to go on sale. And from what he told me, about a week before they were going to start to sell them, or at least announce them, it got canceled by upper management saying that we don't want to fight with Motorola. We know the Coco 2 will sell. We don't know if the deluxe will sell. What are you holding up there, Mav? You're muted, Mav.
Can't
we
quite
can't
read
hear you,
the
Mav.
black card.
Can't hear you, Mav.
You're muted, Mav.
I'll start again. Yeah, that's actually one of them that was slated for the deluxe 64K color computer. I got that from Paul T. Schreiber, who dumpster dived that at Radio Shack after they canceled the project. So
is that scanned in anywhere? Because Mark did remember that there was a separate label of a different shape, but he didn't have any himself. So
okay, I'm sure someone scanned it. I can scan it if needed. Mine's not in really brilliant condition, but that was Paul Schreiber got some from, or they came from Frank Durder, I think, or whatever. I know it's hard to focus on it, but that was going to be one of the labels on it. So I've got one of those. But yeah, I bought a Coco 2 in 1984, and most people heard about the deluxe color computer, which was not supposed to see the light of day. In the manual for the extended color basic, they mentioned the deluxe color computer and its extra keys, and then the manual got out with all the Coco 2s, and after a while people started going, hang on, what's this deluxe thing that we've never seen and when's it coming? So Tandy was going to bury the project and no one would ever have heard about it. But then there's like 100,000 manuals out there that have the mention of the deluxe color computer in it. So it's
and I mentioned a few of the new features. Mentioned the built-in RAM drive that's in there, which is in the ROM we have, and it mentioned the keyboard and the editor. They said the edit command no longer works. You're going to use the arrow keys and edit on screen.
Yeah, I mean, the same day I bought my Coco 2, I sort of went back to my local Radio Shack computer center and showed them the thing in there. And I said, the minute this thing arrives in Australia, I'll put me down for the first one you get it. And they sort of looked at it and goes, we've not even heard of this. We don't even know what that thing in the manual means. And so yeah, but hopefully you can bring it along to Coco Fest.
Brian is bringing it to Coco Fest. We will be doing live demos, and we probably will do a little talk on it too, I'm guessing.
Cool. All right, so we're running out of time here. Dusty, how's TRS 8-bit coming along?
Pretty good. I'm just waiting for a couple of people to send me bits. I'm 80% of the way completed, so I'm hoping if all goes well, I'm hoping to publish sort of this coming weekend, a week today, something like that.
That would be perfect.
One as well. It's got a really, I'm not going to tell you all of it to spoil the fun, but there's a really detailed article about basic and all the different variants from different machines somebody's compiled, and Jim's done really, really well. I think it's a go-to article if you want to compare basics. It's really exciting, but there you go. You know, and I'm just one quickie. I'm just going to revamp the style on the front a little bit. We've been 17 years without a change, so I thought, well, start the 18th year. I'll just jizz it up a little bit. But if you don't like it, let me know and I'll revert it back. But
I was going to say I can't remember the last time the cover changed. I'm thinking that hasn't. It's been the same for 17 years. So yeah, people should be eagerly awaiting it. I've done a trove of information about the tech disk drive in the Model 4D as well as the color computer FD 501. So worth downloading it just to read that article.
Hey, Dusty, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, Jay.
What printer or typeface were you using in your letter in the beginning? It looked like it was like an ASCII character, like a electronics.
It's ever so simple. It's a Microsoft True Type, and it's called Teletype, and it's supposed to look like the old KSR 33's teletypes, which we had out in the day because we couldn't afford a real printer. We scrounged a second-hand one that they were slinging out with a serial interface and connected it to the cassette port in the old-fashioned way, and it just gives it that 1980s feel.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I'll be devil's advocate. I don't like it because it doesn't properly do lowercase letters, and it kind of coincidence that the time that Dusty started to move away from that font was when I started regularly submitting articles, and I asked if we could do mine at least in a more conventionally readable font. But it's a good old font for the representation of the time. I just prefer mine in a easier to read one.
Yeah, just for a bit of fun. That's all.
Okay.
I always have to give Dusty props when he joins us for the late show because it's like 3 a.m. there. So thanks, Dusty.
4 a.m. Yeah, you're gonna have a good sleep in on Sunday morning. Yeah. Anyone else that I've missed out that really has something I want to say, or that they want to say, or are we? Nope. Okay, Blair, you haven't got anything off the top?
Well, a couple of shout outs. I just want to shout out to you, Mav. You're listed on the Tandy Assembly website now as a member of the board, and your description indicates that you're an international man of mystery.
Yeah.
And so that that description may require some explanation at Tandy Assembly. And also a shout out to Peter Phillips, who, while he's giving a very accurate and complex and detailed description of floppy disk controller related analysis, and he says, well, there's some real experts out there that anybody wants to chime in. And I think Peter has turned into one of the preeminent experts that we have available for any issues related to floppy disk controllers. I've reached out to him before, and he's solved whatever problems that I've ever encountered. So just a couple of shout outs.
Yep, good on you. Thanks for that, Blair. Nick Marentes, I'm always pleased when you join us here. I know that it's Sunday afternoon in Australia like I am here, and lots of stuff we could be doing, but we're here for the cause. What have you been up to? And people who don't know, Nick's a programmer in the Cocoa world, among other things. So
and the Model 1 and 3.
And the one, and
I started on the Model 1.
When's your next Z80 game coming, Nick?
Sorry, my next one. I'm working on a color computer one. I became a color computer user, but I started with a TRS-80 Model 1. I've got one of those Japanese TRS-80 Model 1s that came out back in 1980. And that's where I started. Did about 5 commercial grade games before going to the color computer.
And then you went back for one more.
Well, I did one more recently, but back in the day, I was still a high school kid, and there was no internet, so I mean, no one knew about my games back then anyway. But that's me.
Cool. Thanks for joining us here. And there's murmuring among the people in Australia about possibly running a VCF somewhere in Australia. So hopefully we can all catch up at some point in time. I haven't actually mentioned much about what I've been doing. And so in a couple of weeks, about 2 weeks from now, we have a giant hobby fair in Melbourne at Sandown Racecourse. It's normally trains and Lego, but they've reached out to me to get a group of ramshackle retro computerists together for 15 tables showing off the hobby, spruiking the hobby of retro computing. So we're all eager to get going in that. Now, to give you some kind of an idea, over the 2 days of the weekend, they have between 8,000 and 12,000 people coming through this thing. So this is really going to show off retro computing as a hobby. Wow. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in about 2 weeks. So hopefully I'll have lots of photos and information and experience that I can bring to future Tandy assemblies and VCF shows. If we can get them that big, would be not a bad idea. Okay.
I do have one thing I want to mention at Cocoa Fest. I should have mentioned before. We've sold out the main room for tables already for vendors. So now we're booking into a second room or into the hallway. So if you do want to get a fairly decent table, I would do it sooner rather than later.
Cool. Did you hear that, Peter Satinsky? If we run out of tables at Tandy Assembly, we should really look at adding another room or getting out into the hallway.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of
the parking lot.
And the parking lot.
Well, VCF did Midwest.
Or Peter's truck.
I'm going to be at VCF East in just a little over a month. I didn't see any other Tandy exhibits except for mine. So guys, come on. You got to represent. Join us. We'll have a little Tandy assembly meetup at VCF East.
Save more for us.
I'll be there at least.
Yeah, stop by. I'm going to have my Model 2 board collection that I had at Tandy assembly going and the Model 2 running. So.
I saw a message in the chat there that Eric asked if where the Coco 3 fits into the lineage. So short answer, they terminated the deluxe color computer, but then needed something to replace the color computer 2, which they took a lot of the good stuff out of the deluxe color computer, but added things like enhanced graphics. Retain things like the crappy sound and bitbanger serial port, and repurpose the keyboard from the deluxe color computer, and there you've got a color computer 3. So sorry,
emphasis on cheap. That's what they did.
Yeah, if people are offended by my quick and not very well thought out description of the color computer 3. I love my color computer 3, but it would be such a great machine if it had a proper sound chip and a proper serial port. But
what Marcus Siegel said, the dictation to even have a Coco 3 to come out at all was it had to be cheaper to manufacture than the Coco 2 itself. And the Gimme kind of saved it there because it combined a bunch of chips into one.
I'm prepared to offend color computer people.
I in Australia we say you can offend anyone as long as you do it with a smile on your face. So I always got a smile on my face. All right, 3 minutes to go. Any last people? Craig, you got anything?
Well, I came across a kind of a parody ad that was put together that looked like something that would have been in the Radio Shack computer catalog about a TRS-80 Model 25. Has anybody ever seen this? If so, if not, I can share it, or if it's well known.
No, I haven't seen that. Please share it.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up here.
This will be a good thing to end the show on.
While he's looking for it, very quick, just shout out to Nick. I got his CD of his game, so I plan to stream this too.
Oh, great!
Has this shown up?
That's been around for a while, and I thought it was very clever. Someone has spent a lot of time on that thing. I never thought of it as a Model 25. I always thought of it as the smart mobile phone.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I thought that this. Well, yeah, it calls it a Model 25 down, by where the price is. But yeah, when I found this, I just thought it was kind of cute.
Hey, if somebody built this, I will buy it.
I generally at VCF Midwest or Tandy Assembly get Dancing Demon running on a Model 1 and then just go to lunch. And people just want to kill me when I get back.
Because of the sound.
Yeah.
Peter, out of those two models, they had a 4K model, 8K model. Did you want the VisiCalc Junior upgrade, or is that a bit too expensive for your taste for that phone?
No, that's cool. All right.
We're gonna have it out.
Yeah. Last words.
Right.
Any last comments before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah. My comment is that Coco people tend to talk a hell of a lot more than Z80 people.
No, they don't. I talk a lot as well, and I'm a Z80 person, so it's you know, you got to get it in you got to have it in your mind to get it out in the first place. That's the way I see it.
Their podcasts go on for like 4 hours or something.
We cut it short today, only 3 hours today. It was pretty short.
Yeah, well, I have a very strict 2-hour limit on this thing, which we've just hit. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining us. Sorry if I didn't get to you. Just next time I'll try to get through everyone. We had a good turnout. I'm pleased with everyone who joined us. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in a month's time.
Bye.
Goodbye, guys.